All right. It's 12 o'clock on Wednesday. That means it's time for the Iowa Learning Farms Conservation Webinar. I'm Matt Homers with Iowa State University, and really excited to hear our presenter today talk about a topic that is near and dear to my heart with tile drainage. And certainly with how wet things were last year, a lot of interest in tile drainage. So I think this will be super useful. We are really fortunate today to have Dr. Hongli Feng. Dr. Feng is an assistant professor in the Department of Economics and the Center for Agricultural and Rural Development here at Iowa State University. She's going to talk to us today about what's under the drain, understanding farmer perspective on tile drainage investments. If there are questions as we go through this, please type those in the chat box as usual, and we'll get those to Dr. Feng at the end of the talk. With that, the virtual floor is all yours.
Um, thanks, Matt. Yeah, I'm really glad to come to share some of our research about drainage system in the United States agriculture. Yeah, I'm a bit nervous to talk about drainage here with Matt here, but fortunately, I probably just talk about the social econ part, not really quite what's going on under the drain, how the water flows, and how much nutrients there is. But anyway, so let's get started. First of all, so this is an NSF-funded project. The project is led by Dr. Liang Dong at Iowa State University. So overall, the project presented here is part of a larger project that aims to promote a sustainable use of drainage systems. So hopefully that we can promote a system that benefits farmers, communities, and the surrounding regions. The overall project has different parts. It has a biophysical part and a social econ part. For the biophysical and the science, natural science part, we have different types of sensors and also computational modeling of water and nutrients. And here, mostly, I'm going to talk about the social economics part. For the social economic part, we mostly intend to work with the farmers to examine how they make decisions concerning drainage systems. And the purpose is to help farmers, decision makers, to enhance economic profitability and the overall environmental sustainability as well as the whole drainage system. So here, I would like to give a shout out to our PhD student, Rit Chakraborty, and he hopefully will soon be a doctor himself. He has been doing an excellent job on this project. So mostly, I believe he's in the audience and he will answer some of the tough questions from you. Another collaborator is David Hennessy, who is a professor in economics. For this audience, I believe I do not have to get too much into details much tiling, and I'm not sure how much I can share anyway, being trained as an economist. So basically, a tile drainage system will take away excessive water so that plant can grow better, healthier, and also that as fields get drier faster, that we will get more time for farm equipment to get into the field. Our tile drainage system is what I learned is a very complex system depending on the topography, land characteristics, and how the water flows. Here's one example of Western Boone County. The green dots with DD are the districts. So the drainage system is managed by drainage districts in Iowa. In some other surrounding states, I think the drainage districts are mostly just represented by counties. So the drainage system is actually not just a natural system, physical infrastructure with tiles and with pipes under. It's actually also accompanied by a complex social ecosystem. Obviously, drainage districts are set up with special functions. For example, the power to tax and eminent domain that's related to the social and the policymaking aspect of drainage districts. So the big picture about tile drainage in US ag, First of all, it's estimated that the asset is worth about $50 billion. So that's $50 billion of infrastructure asset in U.S. agriculture. It covers more than about 23 million hectares of cropland. You can convert that into hectares. So that's over 50 million acres of cropland. Mostly it's concentrated in Middle Western states. So the Central Corn Belt has a high concentration of tilled land. It has been the foundation of modern Corn Belt agriculture. So it's a necessity, or it's a driver for productivity growth. Over time, the technology has improved in terms of how to make the tile system more effective in terms of controlling excessive water. Interestingly, despite the importance, you may say the perceivedness of a drainage system, it has not actually been studied that much, at least from the social economic side. We do not actually quite understand how the system works, as I said, mostly on the social and economic side, how farmers make decisions, what they think are the benefits and costs and the barriers, etc. So that's the focus of our research. So some general questions for us would be how the current service drainage system, how the current subsurface drainage system has impacted the agriculture sector. Specifically, what are the impacts on yield, both in terms of level and in terms of variability? And what are the projected impacts of climate change as the weather, as the precipitation changes? And also, how do farmers perceive the drainage systems? And what are the drivers and the barriers of drainage investment? So this is very important because the system is, the old system started back in the 1800s. So some of the drainage system underground is quite old, needed to be updated. And also, as the cropping system changes, as the agriculture system changes, the drainage system may need to be expanded. Then how best to make investment in drainage system would be a question. In addition, as we understand more about the impacts of drainage system, not just on productivity, also on the sustainability of our whole agro-ecosystems. And we need to understand how farmers perceive or understand the conservation drainage systems. Basically, that makes the system works more efficiently, both in terms of yield management and also in terms of nutrient management. So these are some of the questions that we're interested in. I don't think I will provide answers to all these questions, but we're trying to tackle them piece by piece. The specific two goals for us on the socioeconomic component would be on the left side would be the long-run yield impact and the farmers' drainage adoption. To what extent farmers adopt drainage system and what are the factors affects their adoption, and what are the yield effects that interact with water conditions. The right part will be specific about farmers' decision making. What factors are incentives are more on the benefits side, on the push side for farmers to adopt drainage systems, and what are the barriers for their decision making in terms of making investment in a drain system, or expand or update their drainage system. In terms of a method, we use both general econometrics based on observed data on yield, weather variables, and other social econ variables at the county level to understand the impacts of adoption and the impacts of drainage systems. On the right-hand side, it's more at the farm level to really try to understand how farmers think about the system. In terms of first part of the yield impact, here's a simulation that mostly is conducted by rate about how drainage system will impact the yield in a changing environment. So on the left, it's corn. On the right, it's soybean. So you can see that on the left, corn will be more dramatically affected by the climate change system and the drainage system will become more effective. Whereas on the right, it's mostly gray, and there's the impact is much smaller relative to corn. So mostly I think the drainage system will have impact on the corn production. As far as the decision as to what drainage system to use and whether to invest in drainage system, there are three main features of drainage system that will affect the investment decision. So the first one would be the long-term nature of drainage investment. So it requires a substantial upfront cost. Exactly how much, I have some numbers, I'm not quite sure I want to quote it here. So basically that means the costs are upfront, and whereas the benefits are uncertain and come in years. And the second one would be the spatial interdependence. So basically, one farmer's decision about whether to install drainage system or not will at least partly be affected by what's happening in neighboring land and also the main drain system. The third one is about regulation. So the drainage system does not just stand on its own, it operates in a larger system. So mostly it will be affected by wetland policies. And if a region, if a community wants to have policies on water quality management, as the drainage system is closely related to nutrient cycling, it will also be affected by any water quality related programs. So when we think about drainage investment decisions, we have to consider all these factors that may affect the decisions. There's no better way to understand how farmers think than directly go ask them. So we conducted a survey of farmers in the Midwestern 12 states. We selected farmers that operated at least 200 acres of corn and soybean. So mostly, we'd like the perspectives of farmers who have a significant interest in agriculture, mostly as represented by corn and soybean production. So we selected counties based on the number of tiled operations, where the data came from the ag sensors. And obviously, we would select neighboring counties. We don't have holes in our study region. So that's the selection of samples, and this is how it looks like visually about the counties we selected and the number of the proportion or the weight that each county gets. Visually, you can see visually that the weight on each county. So specifically, we surveyed farmers in 870 counties in these 12 Midwestern states, as shown on the graph. For data collection, obviously here, I have to thank all of the farmers that completed our survey. I understand that farmers are getting many surveys, and survey fatigue is an often mentioned concern in our research, community of researchers. So I definitely very appreciative that farmers, if some of you are in the audience, you took the time and completed our survey. So we collected 560 responses for a response rate about 20%. We collaborated with Iowa State Survey Center to distribute and manage the survey implementation. The survey was implemented last year, actually just about a year ago, in March and May, just before farmers got really busy for the planting season. Our survey consisted about 8 pages of questions, and it has different sections. So sections about basic production decisions, obviously the drainage decisions and the experience with their soil condition and their neighbors regarding the drainage system management. And also some basic farm socio-econ demographics. The survey question that I would like to focus on today is barriers. So this is the exact question that we asked in our survey. Whether or not you plan to, I'm going to read it because it's very important for survey design. The wording is has to be very precise. So we spend lots of time on exactly how the question should be asked. So this was how we asked the farmers regarding barriers. Whether or not you plan to install new or upgrade existing drainage systems in the future, how much impact have the following factors had as barriers to investment decision? So we were specifically asking for about barriers, the ranking of barriers. We asked 6 factors in the survey. The first one is about uncertainty of yield effects. The second one is about rental contracts. The third one is about coordination with neighbors. As I mentioned that, a survey drainage system will dealing with water, and where does the water come from? Where does the water go? Matters. That's when neighbors, community will be concerned. The fourth one is about the environmental effects, as we have heard a lot about how drainage systems may, the nutrient may bypass the natural filtering system because of the drain pipes, how that affects farmers' decisions. The fifth one is payback period. So basically, the length of time for farmers to get back of their investment. So the last one is about wetland regulations. We chose these 6 factors because that's what we heard from the literature and from farmers, that these are maybe important factors. So we just go direct to ask farmers how they rank these different factors here as in this table. Here are some answers. We have heard the importance of different factors. That's why, the factors appear here. But somewhat surprisingly, that 46% of farmers, that's the tallest bar, actually chose indicated that payback period was the most important barrier to drainage investment. We heard about environmental concerns, and we heard about the rental contract. We also heard about sometimes disputes related to drainage systems. But the data we collected, the respondents indicated that nearly half, 46% said it's really the economics. So it's the benefit, it's the bottom line, so it's the payback period that came as the top concern. The second result we may say the data that I would like to show from our survey is that 21% of respondents feel that rental contract are significant barriers. So that will be the top 2 bar. So the number 5 is a great impact. Number 4, so that's the second from the top. Literally would be quite a bit of impact. So that's 21% of respondents indicated that rental contracts are significant. So even though rental contracts are not really as significant as payback, but still many farmers rate them as a barrier to make investment in drainage systems. This one is a spatial distribution about the dominant drainage barriers. The yellow one is payback period. So as consistent with the bar chart I showed, it's almost everywhere. So it's payback period farmers are concerned about. And then the purple one is more on the edge a little bit, especially on the northern edge. So the purple is wetland regulations. So those are farmers, those are places we have data on showing that wetland regulations as a dominant barrier to drainage system investment. And the rest are the dark blue, it's harder to see, or green, it's about yield effect. And then the lighter blue, which is harder to see on this graph, about coordination issues. So it's mostly, the kind of a social interaction part. It's the rental contracts and coordination issues as the 2 blue factors. So for this one, it shows the perceived impact of environmental effects. So largely, although it's all over the place, but largely it's the Central Corn Belt region that concerns regarding environmental impact of drainage, were indicated by farmers as a dominant factor in terms of their drainage system development. So that's I think that's all the data I have. There's one chart that I didn't show here, is that actually we also asked information about conservation drainage systems, controlled drain and wetland, etc. Most farmers indicated that they have a very low knowledge about the different types of conservation drainage systems. And also here, with our ongoing research, we are studying about how subsidies might affect farmers' investment decisions, the conservation drainage systems. So we have one specific, you may say, paper that we focus on decisions concerning conservation drainage system, because I think that's very important, even though here the data that I presented pertain to a general drainage system. It's just that very few farmers indicate that they know much about the conservation drainage system. So I thought that it's important that I point out here. In terms of key takeaways here, these are some of the factors that shown as being important in farmers' drainage decision making. The first one would be your financial leverage. That one definitely affects how farmers perceive the barriers of drainage systems. And then I've just shown you about our rental contracts. And then different geographic regions, because they have different topographic conditions, and that determines how water flows. That will also affect how farmers perceive the different drivers and barriers of drainage investment. So what are the but in terms of a policy message, is that our research shows that we really have to understand the farmers' financial constraints and some of the regional factors that affect the farmers' drainage decision making. So this is important for a couple of reasons. One would be the changing climate and the age of most of the current drainage systems. So that means that farmers will be considering making new investment or upgrading their current systems. Then this would be a good opportunity to help farmers make decisions that's good for their bottom line and good for the environment. Most importantly, I think it's very important for us to understand how farmers make decisions about just any drainage system, the tile drain system, with or without conservation so far. Because many farmers have not adopted the conservation drainage system, different types of conservation drainage systems yet. Understanding how farmers in general make such decisions, a large investment, will really help us understand, how to talk about the conservation drainage systems with farmers and helps them make decisions that's good for them and good for the community. I think that's all I have for today. I'll take any questions.
Okay, Hongli, before we get to questions, let me do my job here. And if you watch this webinar live and are wanting to earn a CCA CEU, please email Elena Whitaker, ALENAW, at iastate.edu by 5 o'clock today. Include your name, the name you entered to watch the webinar, and your CCA number. Again, ALENAW at iastate.edu by 5 o'clock today with your name, the name you entered to watch the webinar, and your CCA number. We can go to the next slide. If you can forward, Hongli, if.
Oh, sure, sorry.
Yeah, sorry. Nope.
If you watch this, I thought you have it.
Yep. No, if you watch this webinar live and are willing to fill out a voluntary demographic survey, we'd greatly appreciate it. You can scan that QR code or go to iowalearningfarms.org/survey. Only one survey response is needed for 2025 webinars. So if you've done it before, Thank you very much. And if you're willing, we'd greatly appreciate it. Maybe next slide.
I'm not used to in control of anything,
Yeah, okay. All right. All right. If you please tune in next week, we'll hear from Dr. Rob Malone, um, Dr. Sabrina Ruiz, and Dr. Tom Richard. They're going to talk about winter rye energy crops, biomass, forage, energy, nitrogen loads, economic soil quality, and more. So um, we will. So please tune in next week. Okay, we do have some questions. Keep them coming in. Um, and there may be some that you're not as quite well versed maybe to answer them, but that's the we'll get through as many as we can. Um, Somebody was asking if they can remove existing tile. Are there legal restrictions on that?
My goodness, so for sure.
Yeah,
Thank you so much, Matt. You are
yeah,
here
yeah.
for the
Yeah, I
technical
think,
part. Huh? Yeah,
yeah. So I think in a lot
yeah,
of cases we can remove that tile, but it's kind of if you are in a drainage district, there could be some issues there if you, especially if it was the drainage district made.
yeah. That's my layperson's understanding of the technical
Yeah,
part. I heard
yeah,
it's pretty hard, I think.
yeah. Okay, there was that five or that 50 billion value that
Yeah,
you had in one of the first slides. Does
yeah.
that include the recurring value on crop production or just the raw materials and installation?
I think that's first of all, I think that number is from the another expert at Iowa State.
Okay,
It's Mike Castano's number. I
okay,
think he actually
okay,
used it in his Senate his Senate testimony. I think
okay,
we copied the number from there.
okay.
Yeah, I believe that they estimate, based on the roughly the yield difference and then you times the price. That's how they got the number, I think.
Okay.
Yeah, it's awfully hard. It's one of our research too, because it's hard to pin down the benefits and the costs of drainage
Yeah.
system. There can be a raw number. I'm just going to give you a little bit longer answer if that's okay. So
You betcha.
there can be just raw number, just compare the difference between drained versus undrained. You take the difference and hey, this is the value generated by drainage system. However, economists are really picky about the causal effect. We'd like to think that those with the land with drainage system, maybe they start by being different. So you
Mhm.
cannot just simply you cannot just simply take the difference to say that's the difference. And maybe the land that's being drained, maybe because they have higher potential to start with.
Yep.
Otherwise, you wouldn't want to invest that money. Or maybe they have greater potential. The difference, the drainage system will make a bigger difference between
Yep.
drained and undrained condition. So it's a bit tricky to really pin down. That's part of our research to come back to the payback period. In order
Okay.
to under payback period, we have to answer that question. Yeah.
Okay. You kind of talked about this, I think the debt to asset ratio, but maybe if there's anything you can expand on that, because somebody asked about what about barriers based on farmers' current financial situation? Um, and I think you talked a little bit about that, but is there anything else maybe to mention on that?
Sure. So in our question, so that's limitation of survey versus, we really go down to a farmer's kitchen. Let's talk about it.
Yep.
We can get 50 minutes to talk about that. So the survey question we have would be, what's your debt ratio? I think that's what we know. So it's how leveraged a farmer is in terms of their debt relative to the assets they have.
Yep.
So we assume that if a farm is highly leveraged, then the farm, you would always think about how to pay the loan, how to repay the debt. Because of that hanging on your head, then you would be much more. You could, but for many farmers, that will likely make them more conservative in taking new investment,
Okay.
major investment. I didn't cite it. I think I heard, but the drainage system could easily cost about 1,000 to 1,500 an
Yep.
acre. Right? Yeah.
Yep.
So I didn't want to use a number until, we're still doing research until I have a very good hand on it.
Okay.
With that
Um,
type of investment, it's you really have, I think any investor will be very cautious.
yeah. Somebody asked, how were small sample sizes treated in the county analysis?
Great point.
Yeah.
So the survey research has become much more challenging. It's you know what else to do. it's if satellite data helps, field level trials help. But really, in order to understand how farmers thinking process, the farmers thinking, we really have to go back to farmers. But that means that's about small sample. So our sample as a response rate is not too small, so it's about 20%. So we really have to be cautious. That's a great question. If we only have one or two responses from a county, which is not, it's not, it happens. So in that case, what I showed today, I'm not trying to say it's representative. So maybe I say that blue dot says it's wetland regulation, not purple. That if there's a purple county in, say, in North Dakota, South Dakota, there tend to be more purple counties there. It's not really rigorous to say maybe there are more issues than elsewhere, but it's just like we happen to have maybe a few dots there. But it's indicative. It's not quite rigorous, not yet. Yeah.
Hongli, is there
Yeah.
a paper or card report available for folks to dig in with other questions if they have
Yeah, I
them?
think, yeah, John will be happy. So we rewrote an outreach article I can share with you about just some of the general issues and a few
Okay.
figures from our survey to Ag Policy Review 2024. It's the first author is the PhD student Rita Chakravarati. He will be, as I said, hopefully he will be a doctor by August. Yeah, so that's one, and we made some academic presentations, kind of like today, but they're not. And we have, and it will be in dissertation. So
Okay.
by fall, definitely one way or another, some results will be available as a dissertation.
Okay. Yeah. And if you're willing to share kind
Yeah,
of the overview, we can hopefully get that in the blog, the Iowa Learning Farms blog for next week too. So,
yeah, sure, yeah.
um, okay, let's see. Oh, okay. Yep. Actually, Elena put it in there, put the link in there. So the ag policy review. Very well. Very good.
Yeah.
This one, and maybe it'll, ooh, um, going back to the, darn it, going back to your, survey question, because somebody asked, did all the survey participants have pre-existing tile systems? And how many were thinking of the investment in terms of going from completely undrained to drained versus going from kind of poor drainage to a more well-drained condition, that they already had some drainage and that it was just an improvement versus a complete undrained to drained condition.
That's a great question for the pre-existing share. I don't have an exact number. I think Rita, if you're here, you can put the number in the chat. I believe it's vast majority, like like 80-90% of respondents would have some drain system on their land. I could be wrong.
Okay.
So that's one. That's my impression. The vast majority of our respondents have a drainage in their fields. So that's one. This surely somebody who knows about drainage. We debated when we talk about drainage investment. It's exactly, it's not just about I have a field that with zero drainage system. We're thinking about putting new drain, but then there's upgrading.
Yeah.
I feel they feel like maybe they see signs that the drainage is broken. It's not working. There's a field is opposite drained, but maybe it's just it's not working as well. Or I think I understand that maybe the spacing is different. Maybe some people just want to put in more. I think in our question for this specific question, we tried to be more generic. Just say anything when you consider putting money down. I think we see significant investment about at least $20 per acre down. When you're trying to make decisions like that, what are the factors and drivers?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So one person brought up a
Yeah.
good point, because I think you talked about that coordination was a bigger issue kind of throughout in the central part of those areas.
Yeah.
And one reason for that may be that some of that's flatter topography. And so to get an outlet, they've to get an outlet requires coordination with landowners. I mean, that's the drainage district country, versus maybe in some of the other areas, more naturally rolling lands. Um, there may be more opportunities for natural outlets to the stream versus having as quite as much coordination.
Yeah, I think we also conjectured that
Okay.
in flatter areas, that's
Yep.
more coordination
Yep.
is more important. Um, that's that's a topic we really would like to study on, and I even contact some lawyers to see, we'd like to gather some some lawsuits to see where disputes more likely to happen. We don't have that type of data yet, but as you see that it does see more benefits from coordinating in the flatter areas because just how the water flows. I think
Yeah.
that's definitely an issue. Yeah.
Yep. And I don't think somebody asked about this, but I don't think your survey got into the insight of tiling details, depth, spacing, tile size, and that kind of thing, right?
I don't think we did. That was
Okay.
yeah, um, yeah. No, I don't think we did. We're really constrained by the 8 pages of questions.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Can you go back a few slides? There was one that kind of caught me because if we go back right there, that one, ooh, that one. Yeah, that one. So this one was, remind me, question one. Okay. Oh, no impact. So most said that the rental contracts did not create a barrier. Is that
Yeah,
right?
so this is
Yeah.
kind of surprising to
Yeah.
me, because we heard so much about rental contract
Yeah.
causing complications in long-term investment, not just drainage, it's other any type of investment, in conservation or not, investment. Um, it's that's what's interesting. Just let the
Yeah.
data speak. And obviously,
Yeah.
there's some limitations of our data because we only have 20% of response rate. So that's something I would like to emphasize. So the other thing would be that even though intuit, I mean, I don't know how people hear about it on the road, but intuit, you can also think about that. Even though potentially it can cause issues, if this much money is going to go in, who's going to invest, who's going to share how much of the cost? If 1,500 goes in per acre, how much is going to be the landowners, how much is going to be the renter, and how long is the rental contract duration? However, as we talk about in the APR article, maybe there's some informal arrangement which could be made more formal. There can be innovations, can be improvements in the rental contract. I think good communication helps. As long as you have good communication with your landowner or with your tenant about how this is going to be done, and there are different ways that the cost could be recouped fairly, at least not fairly, at least in a mutually agreed upon arrangement. So maybe that's why many farmers, our respondent, the highest, the greatest category said it's not important. It could be that maybe they find a way. They think they can find a way to sort it out among themselves.
Okay.
I mean, when I say among themselves, I mean landowner and the tenants.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Got a couple more if you're willing. And there was a question, and I can't remember either. Whether were the was the question asked whether a majority of responses owned or rented their ground?
We directly ask, do you?
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
We ask renting and rent out as well.
okay.
Yeah, how much do you rent in? How much do you rent out? Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Did you break it down by the responses by owned versus rented land?
I think I do have a slide on that, but
Okay.
I don't know, I'm not
Yeah.
good at switching screens to go
Okay.
back to the computer.
Okay.
I can send it to Eileen
Okay.
if you want to.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that yeah, well, then we could put it in there.
Yeah.
This here's a kind of a interesting one. Because I think this was landowners or people rented. They ask if there's a potential for modifying the survey to let drainage districts give their feedback.
Oh,
Yeah,
that's
that was kind
interesting.
of
That's interesting.
that was kind of my response, Hongli, when I saw that question come in. That'd be kind of interesting. Now, yeah.
So first of all, I'd like to if somebody can clarify what do you mean by drainage district? You mean the board, the
I, I
supervisors?
I have a
Yeah.
feeling it would be the whoever's kind of the drainage district commissioners or
Yeah. So it's
trustees.
yeah,
And
yeah.
so, one of the challenges there, well, each state is going to have different kind of procedures that they have. In Iowa, most of the times it'll be the board of supervisors in their other role as drainage district trustees, but in other states, there may be individual drainage district trustees for each drainage district.
So it's
So
very
in fact,
yeah.
some of the landowner, some of the people surveyed could, especially in other states, could have been drainage district trustees.
That's so
Okay.
interesting. Yeah. So I think with
Oh,
the number
and
that's being go ahead.
and I think the graduate student said that it was a mix of owned and rented land, one being all owned and five being all rented, and the average operator score was 2.72.
Okay. Thanks a lot, Reid, for
Yeah,
the
yeah,
clarification. Yeah,
yeah,
I do so many surveys. Sometimes I don't know exactly.
yeah.
Yeah,
No, that's right. Um,
yeah,
the there was another one here, maybe kind of our last one in the interest of time, but did your work get into potentially different motivations for, initial drainage investments, drainage upgrade, or conservation drainage practices, even though you said there wasn't a lot of um,
yeah.
people maybe didn't have as much understanding of that as some of the other things.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I wish I had that slide in. I just realized at the last moment I didn't have that slide. Yeah, very few people, basically very few respondents obviously adopted it. So the adoption rate
Yeah,
was very low, and then knew about had no much about the practices.
yeah,
I think the question is about the drivers, the motivations.
yeah.
We do have other questions that's counterpart of these barriers. I emphasize barriers. We do ask about what do you think? Well, if you installed drainage, what would be the impact? We ask about the yield impact on corn, yield impact on soybean, etc.
Okay.
Yeah,
And yep, the grad student again said
yeah,
helped there with that one that they had an open or you had an open response question as well, and kind of under the conventional drainage item, cost concerns seem to be dominating in those open response questions.
yeah.
Yep. Okay, uh, Hongli, thank you so very much. Again, if folks need a CCA CEU, please email Elena Whitaker, ALENAW @iastate.edu by 5 o'clock today with your name, the name you enter to watch the webinar, and your CCA number. And I'd encourage you all to tune in next week to Dr. Rob Malone, Dr. Sabrina Ruiz, Dr. Tom Richard to talk about winter biomass and what can be done with that and what some of the impacts are on soil, water, and other factors. So,
Ed,
but
can I add a question?
yes,
Yeah.
absolutely, Hungley. Yeah.
Yeah, so I would love any feedback
Okay.
on the payback period and the investment cost. So if anybody has concrete information, say, it would cost me this much to put on drainage in my field, whether it's upgrading or whether it's new, and to help us to get at that payback period,
Okay.
I would really appreciate any information like that.
Okay, that's great. Yes,
Yeah,
yeah, and
yeah,
you can find Hongli Feng's information on the web, and I think she had it in one of her slides. So you can go back and watch the archive. I forgot to say that this one and all webinars are archived on the Iowa Learning Farms webinars page, and uh, also we have a YouTube channel. Somebody did write in that they 750 to 1250 per acre, depending on the main work needed. And they also commented that locally there's a trend that land being sold will the majority of the time have pattern tile added or filled in within the first year of new ownership if needed? So kind of cut another couple interesting points of feedback. But Hongli, thank you so very much for important and great presentation today.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yep.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye.